Okay. Okay, looks like we're now going live, I think. So, okay. All right, so according to this, it's streaming live on Facebook, so that's good. All right. I think that's Sue Williams.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to give people a couple more minutes to join us, and then we will get going. Everyone, how is everyone doing? Everyone doing well? All right, good.
We're great. It's a little cool and rainy here, but it's fun.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn this light on.
Okay, all right. Perfect.
Well, mic's on, but mostly.
Okay, that's weird.
You know what we need to do?
We need to check.
Yeah, it says I'm live here, but okay. All right.
Elon, I have you on Facebook.
You are?
You are on
We are?
Facebook.
Great. Okay, perfect. Okay, well, so we'll see if other people join us, but we will get started. So, welcome everyone who's joined. Can everybody hear me properly? Perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is, and as I said, I'm hint, hint. I'm trying to convince other people to kind of do something similar, and I know that the Sisterhood is in the process of creating a new cookbook, so this could be an interesting project connected to that as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a little bit about my experiences growing up with the Moroccan family in France, and how that connects to the tastes and smells of Moroccan cooking, and all of that cultural experience that I had. And I want to be clear, by the way, just because obviously my mother is on, she actually grew up in Morocco. This is not my story has nothing to do with Morocco. My story has to do with French Moroccan Jews in Paris, and the experiences of that. So I can't tell you anything about how things worked in Morocco, because for various reasons, my mother never wanted to go back to Morocco. We went to and I think actually it was a challenge to go back to Morocco for a good chunk of time, because obviously Jews had left Morocco, and there were still Jews in Morocco, but it wasn't many, and so the Moroccan experience that I had, in essence, George and Grace, who were in Tunisia for a while, have actually a much more direct connection of Morocco than I do. My Moroccan experience is an experience of French Moroccan family. We would go to Paris all the time. But interestingly, because the story briefly is that my mother's family are from Morocco. She's one of 9 children. So in I think the early 70s, all of them moved when things were starting to get more challenging in Morocco. All of them moved to France. And one day, my mother can tell all of the stories of that. Involves finding ways of liquidating your assets and putting them as diamonds in the seams of belts and things, because the Moroccan government wouldn't let Jews take their money out. But in any event, by the time I was by the time I was born, and certainly by the time I was old enough to think about, to remember anything in particular, we were regularly going to Paris to visit my mother's family. And I say we went to Paris to visit my mother's family because while obviously I got to experience Paris, our trips to Paris were not tourist trips to Paris. They were trips to go to visit family. They were trips to spend time with my many aunts and uncles. As I said, my mother is one of 9 children. So I have essentially 16 aunts and uncles and about 20 first cousins, about 18 of whom are on the Moroccan French side of the family. And so when we would go regularly to Paris, it would be for family occasions. And in fact, and maybe this is my recollection, my mother will say, no, we went over for a lot of other things. But my recollection is that sort of 8 times out of 10, because it was such a large family, it was for an event. It was for a bar mitzvah or a wedding. And let me tell you, those things were something else. When Randy first came to visit Delphine and Eric's wedding, when she first came to meet the family, first of all, I had to go through on the plane this sort of family tree, which is like, okay, so this person is married to this person whose kid is this person. She wanted to make sure, but it was a very complicated thing. And when she got there, she described the whole experience as my big fat Moroccan wedding. Both in the sense that it was a big, family wedding, but also it had that sort of what we would think of as a sort of Mediterranean, Sephardi, very sort of warm, quite loud a family affair. Now, I remember particularly visiting on a regular basis, and for me, the things that I remember most in terms of the family experiences are spending time with my cousins, who were in many ways as much my friends as any friends in England, but also all the many meals, maybe a few too many, but and as my dad pointed out on yesterday morning at Torah study, meals were not simply here's the main dish, here's a dessert. Meals were, it started with a starter, then you had the chicken, then you had the salmon, then you had the lamb, then you had some salad, then you had several desserts. It was I remember way before Randy, I remember bringing a girlfriend when I was 17, and she wanted to make sure that she ate enough to make my grandmother happy, a blessed memory. And she made the mistake, unfortunately, of not realizing that there were 5 courses. So she ate enough of the first main course and then had to get through all the other stuff because she couldn't say no, but she'd eaten way more than she really wanted to eat already. But these tastes were really, some of the food is just very much part of how I connect to that Moroccan side of the family. Now, one dish that is really my favorite, but I can't make now because it would take days, as my mother keeps telling me, is something called salad cuite, which to this day, if my mother, when I go to London, I look forward to this, and all it is really is peppers and tomatoes, all cooked together, but it's a somewhat complicated process. But I could have a meal entirely of that. As my brother now knows, because he's like, yeah, fine, if Ilan's coming, he gets the salad treat. It's fine. But particularly growing up in London, you know, most of the Jewish food was either Israeli, which was wonderful, or it was Ashkenazi. Right? Most of the British Jews were of Ashkenazi descent. So there was good Ashkenazi food, but it was definitely an Ashkenazi taste. And there's a joke that's now going around Israel where a Sephardi family goes and visits an Ashkenazi home, and they immediately get themselves tested for the coronavirus because they couldn't taste anything. And you know, that's the there's no question that growing up my taste buds were Moroccan, and that involved definitely the idea that good food, and certainly the food that connected me to my Moroccan family, was food that had a lot of spices. So here we have, and for this, we have paprika, turmeric, cinnamon. No, this is the cinnamon. That's ginger, some cinnamon, some ginger. All these spices mixed together to create these amazing tastes and these amazing. So I guess my mother is going, this is not how I remember it at all. Now, so by the way, I should say I love Ashkenazi food, but just to be clear, especially the stuff we make for the food fest, which is spectacular. In any event, though, these smells, these tastes were very much a large part of my experience with my Moroccan family, and particularly because my recollections of being with the Moroccan family are part weddings and bar mitzvahs, and part sitting around the table on Shabbat, having an amazing, wonderful meal and arguing and discussing and sharing stories, many of which, by the way, would start in French, which I understood, and then the end would be in Arabic, and I would miss it because I didn't, but apparently the adults didn't want the kids to understand, so they would give the punchline in Arabic, and we'd all be going, I have no idea what's going on. One last little sort of cultural story, sort of cultural clash, in essence, of growing up in Britain, but having this big Moroccan family. At my bar mitzvah, we had all of my British friends, all of the congregants, all there, and at least one of my aunts. Actually, not the one, not initially the ones from Morocco. I have a Tunisian aunt who married into the family, started ululating. La, 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 la. Traditional sort of Moroccan Arabic way of showing joy, and all of my British friends are going, what is going on here? But it was this wonderful sort of expression of joy, and this wonderful feeling that this whole big Moroccan family was here to celebrate with me. So, so the recipe I'm going to share is a Moroccan chicken recipe, and actually, and I'll tell the story as I'm mixing. The interesting thing is, you're probably expecting that this is some old family recipe. It actually isn't. It was a recipe that I picked up trying to remember how to cook old family recipes when I was in Israel, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's start with. So first, anybody have any questions before we get going with the actual cooking?
He's going to do the cooking. I thought
No.
it was
All right, good. So this is the point. Randy is going to have. So I should point out that I actually haven't cooked this for years. Randy took it over and improved it. So Randy may have to give me stage directions from the side. Say hi, Randy. That was your point to say hi, Randy. Okay. All right. Anyway, so well, we need to put it on high first. Okay. So no, hi. There you go. All right. So basically, what we're going to do, so one of the things with this recipe is it is, in fact, one of those recipes which I like to think is actually, when you taste it, it's very impressive, but it's actually reasonably straightforward. It primarily involves putting a variety of ingredients, one on top of each other, and then letting it all simmer. So, for those who are interested, I posted the recipe on the member Facebook page last night, so you can take a look at that. I'll also have it up at the end of this, and if anybody, and I can send it out to anybody who wants. But basically, so again, sorry? Okay, I thought someone said something. All right, so now I should say that the recipe that I've provided has, amounts, but I tend to go with just throwing stuff in. We'll see where it goes, kind of thing. So, so we start with just put some olive oil in the pan, and take some onions and red peppers, right? So diced onions, red peppers. Thank you, honey, for having prepared these in advance. And throw them in. Okay. And saute these for a while here.
You don't have it on high. Put it on high.
I do have it on high.
No, you don't.
Okay, high enough. All right. Okay. So while I'm doing the mixing here, the actual story of this recipe is that when I went to Israel for my first year of rabbinical school, I was feeling a little homesick for Moroccan cooking. Now, that wasn't because we didn't have. This was Israel. There's a lot of Moroccan food there because there's a lot of Moroccans there. However, I think it's a bit too high for them.
That's too much.
Okay, all right. But essentially, I was feeling a little homesick because I was used to having all of these smells and tastes on Shabbat. And so I felt I needed to learn how to make something that tasted like what my mother's family had done. And I at several points I'd asked my mother for family recipes, and essentially the answer is, oh, well, we put a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So what happened was I ended up on Ben Yehuda Street in Israel are a lot of used bookstores, and I found this. This is, I think, the Australian Good Housekeeping magazine's step-by-step Moroccan cooking. And I looked through it and I found this wonderful recipe and said, I can do that. Now, I should point out, I also cheated a little at the time, which is that I bought the pre-roasted chicken from the Israeli kosher supermarket and just threw it all in. And by the way, if you want to do that, I can guarantee you it works. So if you want to go to Walmart or H-E-B and get, your pre-roasted chicken that you can get there, works fine. And the reason it works fine is because there's so many wonderful tastes and spices in all of this that as long as you have a reasonably plain pre-cooked chicken, it's fine. And what I've done, just so you know, is Randy and I disagree on the best way of doing this, but for these purposes, I did it my way. Is that I've already cooked the chicken, right? So what I do is I cook the chicken just completely plain with olive oil in the pan for about an hour, so that it's already cooked before it goes in the pot. Now, okay, so now while we're mixing this in, okay, Randy will do the, okay, so first some turmeric, not much of that, okay, so here's some turmeric, and some ginger.
You don't have to take that off, just open it.
Yeah.
It was open.
Okay,
Go on.
how much of that?
More.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. There's the ginger, some cinnamon.
More.
More?
There you go.
Okay. And finally, some paprika.
No cooking and garlic in it.
Now, interestingly, for a Moroccan recipe, there are two things that you may often see in such cooking that aren't here. One, there's no garlic. There's also no cumin, which is common in Moroccan cooking. But no, none of those are here. Now, so the thing that happened for me is that I found this recipe, found that I could make it easily, and this became my party piece, right? This became my mother's from Morocco, and here is a Moroccan recipe that I have. And so I was never a particularly good chef, but everybody in rabbinical school knew that if they came over to my house for a Friday night, they'd get this. And as one of my colleagues put it, you're a one-trick pony, but it's a really good trick. So now, let's.
As you said, you roasted the chicken.
Okay, so I said I already roasted the chicken in advance. That was already done. So now we will put that in. Okay. Now, partly because of what we happen to have on hand, and also because I personally am a fan of dark meat. These were all thighs, but drums and quarters. But normally we do it with a whole cut up chicken. It's important that the chicken is cut up, but other than that, whichever. And I've also seen recipes for this that do it with chicken breast if you prefer. So all good. But basically, whatever chicken you like, it works. Okay, so here is cilantro. A lot of it. We very much enjoy the taste of it in this. So there you go. Okay. Oh my, that is a lot. Okay.
It cooks down.
That is, and yeah, so even though it looks like a lot, it will cook down. Okay.
Olives.
Now next is olives. So we use olives with pimentos. And there you go.
Now look how pretty this is. Show it
So there you
How
go.
pretty this is?
All
Okay.
cooking down there.
All right. Now it's time for liquid.
Things my mother never thought she'd see me doing a cooking show.
Now this is just
All right. So this is two cups of
2 cups of broth.
2 cups of chicken broth. We actually use partly the drippings from the chicken that we cooked last night, and also chicken broth from an Osem kosher chicken, which technically actually isn't chicken broth. It's technically parve, but it works. But obviously, if you want to use just straightforward chicken broth, that's fine too. Alrighty. Wonderful. And some lemon juice.
And lemon juice, and that's the.
All right.
A
How much of that? A little bit
more.
more.
Make sure you show everything.
Okay, so some lemon juice. Now there is the original recipe, which I haven't included in
Now cover it.
in this actually includes another thing which I remember from growing up, but never learned how to make. So I made it without this, which is there's this particular kind of preserved lemons that are used in Moroccan cooking and a lot of other cooking. They take a while to make. I never got around to doing that. But if you want, I can. If anybody's interested, I can find the recipe for that that's in this book. Give it to you, and I have no doubt it will add extra taste. But there's a lot of taste to this already. Any questions? What we're figuring on doing is we'll just kind of let it cook for 5 minutes. Normally, let it cook for about 40 minutes. We're just going to cook it a little bit so that we can show it to you plated. Turn it down to medium while you're doing that. Anyone have any questions? Yes, George and Grace.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're unmuted here. First question.
Yeah.
When you pre-cook the chicken, did you do it on top of the stove or in the oven?
In the oven.
In the oven.
So just spray it with olive oil, stick it in a pan, put it in the oven, leave it in on 350, 400 for an hour, just so it's properly cooked. And I should explain the difference. Sorry?
That was really cilantro? All that was
Yep.
cilantro?
That was cilantro.
It cooks down.
Okay. And there's cilantro in Morocco?
Yeah?
Because it wasn't in Tunis, I don't recall.
No, I don't know from Mexico.
You know, we
There was
use
cilantro in
cilantro
Morocco.
in Mexico, of course.
Or at least
but
there was
not-
cilantro in this recipe, so.
Yeah.
By the way, I should point out that the difference where Randy and I disagree on the cooking of it, or do it differently on the cooking of it beforehand, is that Randy, when she makes it herself, usually doesn't cook the chicken before. I like it that way, partly because I find it's easier. But basically, Randy leaves it to cook for longer. But the main reason, sorry?
If I don't pre-cook the
Right, if she doesn't pre-cook the chicken. The reason I like pre-cooking it is because then I actually like the idea that it kind of sort of falls to pieces a bit. Randy doesn't like that, but basically when you pre-cook it and then you cook it more, it kind of all falls apart, and I like that part, you know, kind of like a good brisket, you know, that kind of thing. Other questions?
Garlic? Why no garlic?
That's not in the recipe. So,
Why not?
That's
the big difference.
Maman, do you have any answer as to why no garlic?
You could have included it without any problem,
Okay,
without changing the taste. With all the things you put in it, it wouldn't have made any difference.
Fair enough.
So if you like garlic, you put garlic.
Yes.
If you want garlic, if you're very committed to the idea that all your food should repel vampires, you can add garlic. It's not a problem.
Tell 'em, I think that's
Mhm.
the difference between Ashkenaz
And Randy thinks that that's one of the big differences, though, between Ashkenazi and Sephardi, is that there's a lot of garlic, like one of the only spices you get in a lot of Ashkenazi cooking is garlic and paprika, whereas in Moroccan cooking, there's a lot, I mean, garlic is there and paprika is there, but there's a lot of other things to choose from. Yes, Elizabeth.
I do have preserved lemons.
Oh my goodness.
All you do
You
is,
have preserved lemons. There you go.
order them
You could put some
and
Oh,
the
So maybe you could teach us how to do that part.
yeah, you order it.
You order it. Oh, okay. Step 1, go to Amazon. Step 2. Yeah. Very good.
Okay, so you can, and I'm sure that you could
Did you
put
put
the original recipe calls for
Was it
4
garlic?
Yeah, and so the original recipe just calls for like 4 strips of that, clearly just to sort of adds some taste, but there's no question that the preserved lemons do definitely have a very strong taste, and would really add to add to the experience. I've just sort of never had the patience to do it. But any other questions?
Yeah, I want to ask a lemon question.
A lemon question?
A lemon question.
Okay.
So to anybody. So I know I'm thinking about the preserved lemons, which, okay, I have none. Okay. But what if you did a little lemon zest into your pot when you put in your lemon juice? And I think that would just bloom it like incredibly if you zest it a little bit.
I think the lemon zest would probably be great.
Yes.
Why not?
Well, if you don't have that from the preserved lemons, the zest might bring some of that on, I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, for purposes of a possible future sisterhood family dinner, how does this go over with kids? Is it too for them?
Kids find, I mean, as a kid, I loved this stuff. But I think it's fair. I mean, I can tell you, my kid, not so much, but my kid, when we order like salmon for Mira, we have to order it with absolutely nothing, no pepper, no nothing, just lemon, that's it. So Mira is not someone who has adventurous taste. But yes, I think it's fair to say that, if, the kind of kid that likes pizza, hot dogs, hamburgers, and fish sticks, maybe not so much. But I could certainly see doing this and maybe doing sort of like chicken nuggets as a side for the children.
We've got that worked out. It's like two cheese pizzas on the side for the kids' table. Eat them if you want. There you go. And we're gonna eat what's good. So that's worked out. So we worked through that.
But I think this would be a pretty easy. And so we have a. So we have just so we have it. There you go. That's how it looks.
We just wanted to see what.
We prefer to put it on. Sorry, what did you say, Papa? What?
He said it's done already.
I said, is it done already?
Put it on couscous. So we had some couscous that we boiled before. You can easily get couscous at Walmart or anywhere, and you just kind of boil it like rice, basically. And so we have it on couscous, which is traditional for Moroccan cooking, and voila. So people have any other questions? That's good. I'm also just for, I said, I've already put this up on the Facebook page, but if people are interested in you can just take a look at it now, and I can send you the recipe. But this is the recipe. Let me see if I can.
Appropriate.
There we go.
Yes.
So there's the recipe. It goes through everything you need. It's on the Facebook page if you want it. And obviously I'm happy to send it to anybody who is interested. This is the this was the picture from the original cookbook. Definitely looks yummy. So there you go. As I said, anybody who wants it, it's on the Facebook page. You can check it out. So does anybody have any other questions? Okay. Well, I hope you all enjoyed.
Just one thing, Elon. Gary has a question, which I don't know the answer, as to which wine would go with this.
Which wine would go with this?
I would do a red.
Randy says she would do a red.
But most people think white goes with couscous.
I think essentially, generally people think white goes with chicken. But in this particular case, I think red may actually be the better one. I mean, personally, I think the wine that goes best with this is whiskey, but that's just me. So
With an E or a Y?
You what?
With an E or not?
Either way.
Tunisian generally
Closer. Get closer.
in Tunisia generally used a rosé.
Tunisia used a rosé. Now, of course, also, if you're interested, if you really want the tastes that go with this in terms of alcohol, there is arak, which I don't like at all, which is an aniseed liquor. And there's something called bocha bakobsa, which is basically like a fig version of Slivovitz. Those were the drinks that we had with this growing up, and of course, as you say, red and rosé wine. But I think it's fair to say that my cousins and my aunts and uncles weren't particularly concerned with which wine went with it. They just were like, they were Parisian. They were just, let's have some wine. And they weren't really. Alcohol was not a big part of this at all.
That's good because this is Texas and beer goes with anything.
Well, I mean, like, again, in Texas, beer goes with anything. So I don't know. I'm sure. You know what? Maybe because I don't know. Maybe because of the sort of the Spanish influence of Moroccan cooking, Corona, Corona beer. I don't know. Although these days, not so much Corona. But yes, I mean, the answer. Look, the answer is anything goes with this. It's wonderful. Okay, and by the way, Vanita wants to make sure that you are thanked as my beautiful assistant. There you go. All right.
I know what's for dinner.
Yes, we know what's for dinner. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this. And as I said, I really hope that others, Roja wine from Spain. There you go. I really hope that others will, do something similar. And by the way, this will be on Facebook. So if people, if you want to tell people who weren't able to join in right now, it'll be on the member Facebook page as long as the tech works properly. So let people know. And happy you all joined us. And shalom, y'all.
Thank you.
That's good.